You were taught that communication solves everything. That if you explain yourself enough, if you stay open and available, a problem will shrink and the person will finally understand you. You were trained to treat silence as guilt, avoidance, or cruelty. That belief keeps you compliant. It keeps you leaking power in the one place power should be conserved, your attention. Here is the problem with what you were taught. Manipulative people do not use communication to reach truth. They use it to extract control. They do not want clarity. They want pull. Your willingness to explain gives them a rope. They pull and you move. It feels civil. It feels adult. It is simply one person pacing another person's nervous system. Stoic silence is not withdrawal for the sake of withdrawal. It is the refusal to be conditioned by chaotic incentives. Epictetus called it control of your ruling faculty. You do not feed every stimulus with a response. You do not reward emotional bait with your labor. You separate what is yours to control from what is not. You choose where your speech goes. Narcissists find that intolerable for one reason. They do not fear your words. They fear the end of access. Watch the contrast. There are two identities in any conflict. The explicable believes safety comes from being understood. The decider knows safety comes from what you will and will not participate in. The explicable lists reasons, defends tone, and negotiates meaning. The decider states a position once, then lets reality do the arguing. One leaks reassurance. The other signals standards. Narcissists prey on explainers. They get bored or agitated by deciders. This is not abstract. It is behavioral conditioning. In reinforcement terms, your attention is a reward. Variable ratio rewards create the strongest addictions. If you respond quickly sometimes, explain yourself deeply other times, and withhold once in a while when exhausted, you create a slot machine. The other person learns that if they escalate, they might win a reaction. They start escalating by default. This is why you feel trapped in cycles. It is not personality fate. It is predictable conditioning. Silence breaks the loop. In behaviorism, an extinction burst often follows when a reward stops. The creature tries harder. The narcissist tries harder. They raise their voice. They change tactics. They alternate charm and contempt. They do not do this because they are powerful. They do it because the variable reward is dying. The intensity is a sign that your stillness is working. This is where most people break. They return to explaining to make the discomfort stop. They think they are de-escalating. In reality, they are teaching the other person that more pressure eventually gets paid. Marcus Aurelius trained himself to separate appearance from essence. What looks like a crisis is often a pattern. What looks like a personal attack is often a demand for control. He wrote so he could see the mechanics without moral drama. When you practice Stoic silence, you are doing the same thing. You stop treating every spike of energy as a call to action. You learn to sit through your own adrenaline. You let the other person meet their own agitation without borrowing yours. Machiavelli understood reputational gravity. He did not advise constant deception. He advised control of what you reveal. He argued that you should appear consistent, decisive, and less accessible than people want you to be. Not to harm for sport, but to preserve your leverage. If you telegraph that anyone can extract statements, confessions, and rapid replies from you, you become an open ledger. You get audited by anyone who feels like it. Strategic silence signals that your mind is not a public utility. The psychological threat to a narcissist is simple. Your silence denies them feedback, and without feedback, they cannot calibrate their tactics. They live by impression management. They read micro-reactions. They search for cracks. If you do not provide micro-reactions, their internal model starts to wobble. They cannot confirm whether you are impressed or intimidated. The uncertainty forces them to face their own emptiness, not as poetry, as a direct loss of control input. Evolutionary biology gives a second lens. In social mammals, attention is a status currency. Those who command attention without begging are read as higher value. Those who chase attention by over-explaining are read as lower value. Even when they are right, silence functions as a costly signal. It costs you the relief of being understood on demand. You accept that cost to prove that your state is not contingent on external approval. High-status individuals send fewer signals and make others work harder to interpret them. Narcissists try to invert that relationship. They push you to send more signals so they can sit in the judge's chair. When you go quiet on principle, you flip the evaluation. They find it hard to breathe there. None of this requires rudeness. Stoic silence is clean. It does not punish. It does not tease. It simply holds. In the nervous system, this changes everything. Reactivity lives in the amygdala. Executive control lives in the prefrontal cortex. Breath and delay strengthen the latter. When you do not respond to bait, you are not humiliating the other person. You are recentering yourself. You are telling your own brain that it is not in danger every time someone disapproves. That training compounds. The more you do it, the less your body spikes when tension appears. Here is what happens when you stop feeding the loop. First, the narcissist escalates, the extinction burst. Then they probe for new channels. They might try triangulation, recruiting allies to pull at you. They might try guilt or sudden vulnerability. If you have trained in silence, you can separate content from function. You can address facts briefly or not at all, without letting your arousal set your policy. Finally, they either adjust to your boundary or they move on to easier targets. You cannot control which one they pick. You can control whether your energy remains intact while they decide. People will tell you that silence is passive-aggressive. That is sloppy thinking. Passive aggression is covert hostility. Stoic silence is overt boundary. You are not hiding an attack. You are declining a game. You do not owe a monologue to prove that you are not emotionally violent. You owe yourself standards. Epictetus again. First decide who you wish to be, then do what you must do. If your code is to speak when it adds value, and to stay quiet when it only feeds drama, that is not aggression. That is governance. There is a darker implication. Silence forces hierarchy to reveal itself. When you stop explaining, you find out who respects implicit limits and who only respects noise. Healthy people pause, adjust, and ask clear questions. Narcissists escalate, accuse, and demand instant reassurance. This is a brutal sorting mechanism. It can cost you relationships you are trying to preserve. It saves you from relationships you are trying to survive. To use silence well, remove theatrics. Do not grandstand. Do not announce that you are going silent. Do not use silence to bait, and do not time it for effect. You are not staging a performance for an audience. You are teaching your nervous system a rule. I do not explain myself to emotional bait. I do not respond to disrespect. I do not amplify noise. I do not negotiate with someone's dysregulation. I speak to inform or to decide. If neither applies, I conserve energy. A mind that lives by response speed feels threatened by these rules. It will try to convince you that you are being cold, that you are becoming what hurt you. This is what Stoics trained against. Not cruelty, but fear of being thought cruel. Marcus reminded himself to ignore the chorus and stick to the work. Your work is to fix your signal-to-noise ratio, not for aesthetics, for survival of your focus. Consider how power actually behaves. Powerful people do not debate every accusation. They do not litigate every interpretation. They set a standard. They enforce it with behavior. They absorb misunderstanding as a tax. Machiavelli would tell you that rulers who chase every rumor end up ruled by rumor. Replace ruler with individual and rumor with opinion. The logic holds. If you are reactive to every take, you become the sum of other people's impulses. If you can let takes pass without response, you choose your shape. Now look at the mind of a narcissist when confronted with a person who does not explain. They feel an immediate deficit. They cannot project meaning onto your words because there are not enough words to work with. They cannot get you to contradict yourself because you have not produced enough material to contradict. They cannot feed their superiority because there is nothing to climb. The silence creates a vacuum where their usual tools fail. That vacuum is not a trick. It is the natural absence of fuel. There is a warning here. Silence used as a tactic without inner alignment becomes theater. Narcissists sense theater. They exploit it. If you are faking stillness, your body leaks tells. Your eyes, your tone, your timing. They read those cues and keep pressing. Stoic silence is not a mask. It is the byproduct of a decision already made. You do not stand there waiting to be convinced to abandon your boundary. You sit inside it like a room you own. That is why it terrifies them. They can argue with your language. They cannot argue with your nervous system. If you want an ancient pattern, look at Cato the Younger in the Roman Senate. He practiced refusal. He did not match the theatrics of his rivals. He obstructed through procedure, repetition, and an absence of emotional concession. He outlasted because he did not look to be liked. He looked to be anchored. This is not a call to be rigid for vanity. It is a demonstration that calm refusal changes the field. Julius Caesar had to work around him. Narcissists must work around your silence. Some will for a while. Most will not sustain it. Chaos needs fast feedback. Starve it long enough, and it moves. Neuroscience provides a reason to believe this works beyond interpersonal games. When you delay your response, you give your anterior cingulate cortex time to evaluate conflict without flooding your body with cortisol. You reduce automaticity. You create a gap between impulse and action. That gap is where your life gets designed. Viktor Frankl was not a Stoic, but his line about the space between stimulus and response fits the mechanics. Your silence is that space made visible. Notice the binary that matters here. You can be orientation-driven or outcome-driven. Orientation-driven means you ask, who am I in this moment, and what preserves that? Outcome-driven means you ask, how do I make them stop? The first path uses silence to keep your identity coherent. The second uses silence to control someone else. The first builds capacity. The second feeds obsession. Narcissists drag you toward outcome thinking. They want you to fix them, react to them, or punish them. Do not take the bait. Your silence is for you. People will misuse what I am saying. They will use silence to stonewall, to retaliate, to dominate. That is not Stoic. That is performative control. If you are tempted to do that, you are not ready. Learn to speak clearly when it serves the truth. Learn to leave when the pattern is abusive. Learn to sit with discomfort without turning it into a test. The point is not to make someone else small. The point is to make yourself unavailable to nonsense. If you do this, things change. Your phone gets quieter. Your schedule gets cleaner. Your conversations get fewer, but more decisive. You will be accused of being distant. People who trade in chaos will say you have changed. They are right. You have moved your attention out of their reach. That move is irreversible once you feel the energy it returns. There is a reason this knowledge is not commonly taught. It is easier to manage compliant people. It is easier to sell to people who need constant validation. An economy of distraction does not reward those who practice silence. A culture that treats every thought as content cannot admit that most thoughts do not deserve an audience. You are not obligated to match the tempo of a frantic world. You are allowed to opt out and build something that holds under pressure. If you are listening and you feel a pull to defend your old habit of overcommunication, sit with that. Ask whether your explanations have ever convinced a narcissist to respect you. Ask whether your availability has ever transformed an unstable person into a stable one. Then ask how many hours you have lost to winning arguments that bought you nothing. You already know the answer. Here is the standard if you are ready to adopt it. Speak to inform, not to soothe chaos. Speak once, not in loops. Speak to assert boundaries, not to barter for permission. When words will not change an outcome, stay quiet. When silence will keep your center, stay quiet. When your mind is flooded, stay quiet until it clears. You are not hiding. You are governing. A final thought for those who want mastery rather than relief. Stoicism is not about being numb. It is about being sovereign. Machiavelli is not about being cruel. He is about not giving leverage for free. Evolution is not about domination. It is about energy allocation. All three agree on one practical point. Do not waste your resources on displays that only feed other people's appetites. Narcissists are addicted to displays. When you stop performing for them, you stop existing on their terms. That is the quiet terror they feel. It is not your job to manage it. Most people will not practice this. They will keep explaining. They will tell themselves that they are being compassionate. They will stay trapped in repetitive loops that flatter their ego while draining their life. If you have the discipline to do otherwise, you are not most people. Use that. Protect it. If you are ready to join the small minority who choose sovereignty over noise, commit to a season of strict attention control. Refuse the bait. Let silence do work that words never could. The door is open, and very few will walk through it.